Hey, ladies and gents, welcome to the Controlled Interest Gamecast, where we talk about video games and everything we love. As always, I'm joined by Dom.
You guys, I think it's time we face our fears.
Jordan?
Game of the Year 2019.
It's been out for a day, man. Shit.
January.
And for the first time, co-host of Raccoon City Radio, Andrew Taylor.
Hey, how's it going? I have nothing quippy to say, so yeah, I'll just leave it there.
Raccoon City Radio was quippy in and of itself.
Yeah.
Pretty cool name.
So instead of doing our normal, what we've been playing this week, I figured we have some people who've played RE2, the remake. We have some people who played a bunch of Kingdom Hearts 3. So I figured we'd just throw it to those conversations, kind of talk through them. Dom, you played RE2. I know, Andrew Taylor, you're a huge Resident Evil fan. So take it away, guys, with your impressions. Dom?
Yeah, so, I mean, what was it, last year when 7 came out, or the year before?
2
Either
years.
way.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was 2 years ago. So 7 came out, and I just jumped right into that. I was really ready for that. Like, the direction they changed from 6. I never actually even played 6. Really loved 4 and 5. But other than that, that was my experience. So I really liked getting back into 7 and where they went with that. Even the first-person stuff I thought was cool. But overall, it was a great game. And so when 2 was announced, I was kind of like, I don't know much about this. But obviously, dude, as soon as that came out and everyone was just kind of like, holy crap, guys, Resident Evil 2, it's here. And it's freaking glorious. So I had to jump on that. So me and my wife actually played through it together. Well, I played and she watched. But she's really into the horror games too. But yeah, I mean, this isn't going to be the most interesting thing anyone's ever heard, because I pretty much agree with what everyone else has said about this game. I never played the original, like I said, back on PS1, so I don't have that kind of context. But even in its own right, like in the current day and age against other games, like this holds up, and then some. Right? It's absolutely contemporary, and it's not doesn't really feel like a remake of an old game, even in its in most of the what am I thinking of the gameplay, like the puzzles and the systems and stuff. There's a few moments of like, okay, I need the spade key for the spade door. That's like, huh? What? Oh, okay. Or like there's a there's a weird museum trap door in this police station. Like whatever, but a couple weird things like that. But it doesn't. I don't think it takes away from anything at all, because this game is super, super, super good, for lack of a more creative vocabulary. It's really scary, and not just like jump scares. Just the way it sets the mood, and obviously, you always have barely enough ammo. Pretty much every encounter you have with one of the zombies, you're kind of scared that you're not going to have enough ammo to kill that specific encounter, and then somehow they're just barely feeding you enough ammo, and even less so health packs. Like, you barely even find herbs in this damn police station. I don't know why you can't go into like the evidence locker and find probably some of those herbs stored away. I've been waiting to tell that joke for a while.
Jesus Christ.
Dom, as somebody who doesn't have the perspective of playing the original, the biggest criticism I've seen leveraged against this game is that sometimes it feels as if the enemies are a little bullet spongy. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's true, but I don't think I wouldn't call it a criticism myself. It takes like 3 headshots to drop a zombie, and then they get back up later, which the first couple times, like, I wasn't prepared for it, naively. And then you got to shoot him like 3 more times in the head. But I think that adds to the game. Like, it takes a couple shots, and it makes you have to be that much more careful with your ammo. But the coolest thing, though, about them being bullet spongy is, if you remember back, I was a big fan of Dead Space. And those games did something cool where you could cut off, or, shoot off limbs. Now, you kind of had to, actually, in that game, those games. And in RE2, I didn't even realize it until I went to shoot a zombie in the head, and his hand like went up and basically blocked the bullet, but I just saw his hand just get shot off, like only his hand. So it was like they're really particular with the physics and the limbs. So I don't know, that just like blew my mind. I was, holy crap, I just watched like just the palm of his hand get just blown off. Obviously he kept on coming towards me, but yeah, the bullet spongy stuff, I think that's like it contributes to what the game is doing. I think it's pretty cool. I guess it could be frustrating if you don't like those survivor elements and you don't like always being strung up for ammo. I guess that'd be a problem. But I don't know. I was into that, so the game just does so much stuff right. It's just awesome, and I've been craving. I'm always craving, great horror games. It seems there's not too many in this nature. I mean, we have like Outlast and some of those style games got popular for a little while, but to me that's not quite the same. I had been missing Dead Space for a while, and that RE7 was great, and this game felt a lot like RE7. That was my perspective. A lot of people like it even better, but I think it felt similar to that game and what it was trying to do. But I loved it. So.
You didn't play either of the Evil Within games, right?
No, and I actually own both of them, but I haven't gotten. I just said that how much I'm craving horror games, and then I have to admit that those are like in my Steam library or something. I haven't gotten to them yet.
Because those are from the director, who's like the lifeblood of Resident Evil. So it's like.
Yeah, I know. I need to do that. That's one of those spots where I'm like, I don't know why I haven't played that shit yet, because it's right up my alley.
So obviously, Dom's perspective is from somebody who doesn't have a huge attachment to the series. How did the game hold up for you, Andrew?
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you introduced me as like this massive Resident Evil fan, but I'm like a newly big Resident Evil fan. Oh, just because like I have this weird history with this series where I hate horror because I had two older brothers growing up and they would always scare the shit out of me. Like we'd watch like Lawnmower Man, and then like my brother made me watch Child's Play. I'm like scared out of this fucking doll. But so like I've always just been like someone who's really scared of horror in general. But there's just something about Resident Evil that has like this huge kind of draw to it. And when they announced Resident Evil 2, I think it was E3 of this last year. Well, they technically announced that, hey, we're remaking Resident Evil 2.
Yeah.
And this like 4 years ago or something like that. Yeah, we can do it. I remember that. And they showed the trailer this last E3, and I was like, holy shit, Leon's back. Well, technically, whatever, it's remake or whatever. But I was like, okay, cool. So I like tried to get back into Resident Evil. Because I bought 7, I couldn't play it. I played like an hour of it. I was scared shitless.
7 is scarier, I think, than this game.
Yeah.
Perspective, maybe first to third.
I think that's honestly what it is like the first to third perspective. I grew up with a lot of.
I wish things scared me. I wish I could still get scared by things.
Yeah.
It happens when you're dead inside.
It keeps you alive. That's what I say. So. But I grew up with like Gears of War, obviously, and I'm used to that whole like third person perspective. And so this game has kind of pushed me to go back and play other horror games. I have Evil Within 2. I don't have the first one. I bought that this last Halloween, and I played through like the first half of it, and it was scary, but I wasn't like terrified of the game.
Yeah.
I heard like the second half is way like crazier and like scarier and stuff like that, but I still haven't gotten to that part. And I know that the director of that game is, like you said, the lifeblood of Resident Evil. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I have a really weird history with like horror games in general. But there's just something about Resident Evil 2 specifically that has like this massive draw to it. Like it controls like incredibly well. The sound design, as someone who went to school for sound, the sound design is really fucking good. The lighting is really good. The game runs well. I mean, there are some technical glitches, but like I'm not one of those people that really kind of pays attention to that kind of stuff unless it's like really noticeable and say like frames are just dropping and it's just shitty. But there's a couple things, and I mean, overall, like the tone is set right away. Like in the first like 5 minutes of the game, you're like, okay, this is like intense. It's gonna be scary. I haven't beaten the game yet, so like, I'm doing. Me and Alex are kind of playing it as like a book club thing. Cool. Where like we're playing like the first section, and then the next section I think is like the sewers or whatever, and then whatever the last section is. We're both playing as Leon for our first playthrough. So I'm kind of like just eating at this game very slowly versus like other people have already beaten this game and are doing like speed runs already in like 3 hours or whatever. But yeah, I mean, overall, I really love the game. Like, there wasn't a lot of games coming out and I only have a PlayStation and a Switch. I don't really have any attachment to Xbox anymore after the 360. Not to say that Xbox isn't a good system or anything like that, but there was nothing in PS4's like atmosphere this year where I was like, yeah, I really, really want to play that. But like when Resident Evil 2 was announced that it was going to be coming out at the beginning of the year, I thought that was like a perfect way to start 2019. It was with this game. So, I mean, the Switch has a lot of stuff coming out this year too. But yeah, I mean, it's I haven't played Kingdom Hearts 3 and I probably won't play it just because, and there's nothing wrong with that series at all, but it's just a lot to digest, I heard, when it comes to like story.
It has baggage.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure I'd have to play the first 2 games to kind of understand what's happening. But yeah, I mean,
probably more than that.
To understand it, keyword understand it, yeah, you have to play more than
more
that.
than 2.
watch the lore videos or something. But yeah, you know, it's a perfect way to start 2019, and I am facing my fears with this game, and it is still spooky, and there's a lot of cool things, a lot of cool aspects of the game. There's a lot of attention to detail, which is really nice. Like the other day, someone posted a GIF. Like when Leon loads his gun, he takes his flashlight and he puts it like on his shoulder, and he holds the flashlight with his head on his shoulder, and he reloads the gun. And then when he's done, he puts it back. So yeah, like I didn't even notice that until I saw that GIF. I was like, I didn't think of that. So just like really little things like that, I think is really cool and kind of a nice touch for the game. But yeah, I love the game. I think it's great.
I'll give props to the franchise because their last 2 reveals for their games have been awesome. The RE7 reveal was crazy. I remember when they finally unveiled the logo at the end, people lost their mind, especially like Easy Allies. They went nuts. And then with this one, I guess if you're familiar with the series, you could have had a hint towards it, but it opens with that really close up on the rat, like scuffling through all of the boxes, and you start hearing voices, and you see like I think it was like a PlayStation 1 controller, I think, in the trailer. You're like, is this Resident Evil? Is it? And people are leaning in, wondering, and then there's the reveal of the cop, and then Leon comes in, right? I think, and kills the cop, as you like do at the beginning of the game. Really cool reveals.
It's really cool. There's definitely like an attention to detail, and like obviously it's showing like fans want this and love this because it's already sold 3 million copies. I know that we're going to get into that a little bit later on, but yeah, I mean, I'd say that's pretty good for the first week.
Well, I think the fact that
they outpacing, right, 7, I think, by quite a bit. So that makes me really wonder what they're going to do next, like what direction they might go.
Well, the crazy thing too is I think bringing those old games into a modern age and changing things how they fit today's like modern gaming standards in terms of mechanics and systems is really smart. My relationship with the franchise, real quick, Andrew, is that I had never played them growing up. I went back and tried Resident Evil 1, really disliked it. The forced camera angles, everything was horrible.
Yeah.
Then when the remake had come out, tried that, still didn't like it. So I had this relationship with Resident Evil. I'm like, I understand people have a nostalgia for this, but I just can't get into it. Like, in my opinion, those games don't hold up. And I understand why people love them so much, but a lot of like the hokiness and, in my opinion, poor game design doesn't hold up in today's current industry. But Resident Evil 7 came out. I played it, loved that game so much. So much. So it kind of made me fall in love with the franchise that I didn't have any attachment to. And then they announced RE2 Remake, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I'm really interested in it. The demo came out. I played it. I didn't love it a whole lot, just because I don't have that attachment. But it did interest me enough that it is a game I'm going to get to at some point this year, hopefully around Halloween. It is a game I want to play. It's not something I'm thirsting for. And the funny thing is we're about to hop into our Kingdom Hearts 3 conversation. So Jordan is a huge Kingdom Hearts guy. Like, you know, the typical like Kingdom Hearts guy, right? Loves the lore, is super into it.
Whoa, I don't know if I want to be labeled typical Kingdom Hearts guy.
Well, like the typical like
guys.
Sorry, like a diehard Kingdom Hearts guy.
Sure.
Dom is probably in between me and Jordan in terms of he replayed through all of the games. He loves Kingdom Hearts. I don't know if necessarily to the level Jordan does. Me, I've only played 1 and 2. I watched videos to get caught up on all of the stuff that happened in all of the in-between games. And I'm not, like, super involved in the story, really. I just like playing in the Disney worlds for the most part. So we have kind of 3 different perspectives on that. So when it came to this game releasing right next to RE2 Remake, I actually had a tough time deciding. I played the demo. It didn't really hit for me too much. And then the reviews came out for both of them, which was tough because both of them are reviewing extremely well. So I was just like, I'm going to get Kingdom Hearts 3. I figured I'd have the more enjoyment with that in the meantime. I can get to RE2 later for, like, playing that game at Halloween is probably going to be dope. So.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, is to save, especially if it's something that didn't grab you right away.
Yeah.
I think saving it for Halloween, it'll probably be on sale.
Yep.
But maybe like $40 at that time, so, or maybe even less than that. So yeah, I think that's a good idea, especially with so much other things that are coming out soon. Yeah.
So we're getting to Kingdom Hearts 3 right now. We're not going to do any spoilers, so don't worry about tuning out or anything. We're not going to spoil any worlds or anything like that. Pretty much top-level reactions to the game. I'll go first. It's exactly what I expected it to be, for better and for worse. Obviously, it's reviewing very well. I anticipated that a lot of the systems were going to feel like they did in Kingdom Hearts 2. A lot of the combat was going to come naturally to me for somebody who hasn't played since Kingdom Hearts 2. For reference, Andrew, I'm more of an Xbox guy, so I didn't buy the collection because I was kind of boycotting. I own all 3 systems that I was boycotting because I wanted them to port it to Xbox. Because it really didn't make sense for them to release Kingdom Hearts 3 on the Xbox but not the collection. Like, how are you not going to let people get caught up? Really dumb. Anyways, that's besides the point. With Kingdom Hearts 3, I want to get the negatives out of the way because there's not too many for me, but coming off of the heels of playing God of War and Spider-Man and those having phenomenal voice acting performances, that is probably the roughest thing in this game for me, is that a lot of the main characters, so like Sora and Kairi and Lee and some of the mainstays, I think their voice acting is fine. It's some of the other ancillary characters where it's like very hit or miss. Even with some of the characters in the worlds, I don't want to spoil it, but the second world you go to, Jordan, some of those main characters, their voice matches, because they didn't get the actual actors right, some of their voice matches, 100% on. Some of them are really distracting for me personally. So like the voice acting...
it's really not a spoiler to say that you're talking about Toy World. Like,
I guess. I just don't... That was in a lot of the trailers, right? I'm assuming?
Yeah, that's very...
There's like posters.
That's very known. Yeah, so Buzz Lightyear's voice actor matches... what's his name? Name is escaping me. Tim Allen perfectly, in my opinion. Sounds exactly like him.
I'd say pretty well, yeah. The other guy doing Woody is not as good
not
as Tom Hanks.
Great.
And I think everybody else is actually their original voice actor.
Yeah, Ham and Rex are... Well, no, not Ham, because he passed away.
Who did you say?
The guy who voices Ham was an older comedian that was like in his 80s. I forgot his name. Very popular comedian. He passed away.
Oh, wow. So he was the guy that's in a bunch of the Pixar movies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyways.
Can't remember his name. Sorry.
I totally feel you. I won't totally steal your spotlight here, but I'll just say playing the 0.2 fragmentary passage Aqua level before this, the kind of lead-in prelude, Terra's voice actor was really rough in Birth by Sleep, and that got a lot of negative attention, and I agree. It was very monotonous, and it was like he was half asleep the whole time. Then in this little prelude, I was like, oh, wow, you can tell that he's heard the feedback and he's trying to do better. And then I was watching some of the cutscenes and some of the recaps leading up to try to wrap my mind that's supposed to already know what's going on back around this stuff. And Riku's voice actor, it seems like he, over the course of the series, I thought he was great. But then in this game, it's weird. It's almost jarring how so far I'm... one world after where you are, and it does kind of seem like Riku for me is phoning it in.
Yeah.
The organization members are fine to me, and the Disney characters and all that, but Riku's been the only one where I was like, wow, that's weird that it's turned around, that Terra is actually like giving it some oomph, and Riku's voice actor now sounds monotonous.
Yeah. So the intro to the game takes place on Olympus, the Hercules world, so that's not really a spoiler. Hercules' voice and Woody's voice have been the ones that have really pulled me out.
Really?
Yeah.
Hercules?
Yeah.
I think it sounded good.
That's
not
the
for
thing,
me.
though. These voice matches, instead of just kind of casting someone who could fit the role and has a general, is in the same realm of the original voice actor, I think that might be a better idea, because when you're doing these matches, it's really hit or miss, kind of based on the individual audience member or player that's going to say, I definitely felt like they sounded like the original person, or it was distracting because they didn't. So.
Yeah. So the voice acting and stuff is kind of off for me. That being said, there's not a lot of stuff is after that is like nitpicky for me personally, so I don't get into that. It's more of a personal thing. But the negatives are like far and few between. The things that I really enjoy about this game, the combat's really fun. It's what I remember from Kingdom Hearts 2 for the most part. I love I don't know if these are new additions, Jordan, you're going to have to tell me. I don't know if they added this in any of like the spin-off games, but the amusement park rides that you call up as special team-up moves.
Oh, that's brand new for sure.
Yeah, those are amazing. Those are like some of my favorite parts of the combat. Wonky camera sometimes, but like what you're looking at with them being in like the teacups or in the ship and stuff, it's really amazing. As somebody who's like a huge fan of Disney, that's something that's always pulled me into Kingdom Hearts. I'm caught up on the story. I understand what's going on. It's very convoluted, but I'm like doing the research I did. I'm not confused as to what's going on. I'm like very comfortable in knowing what's going on, which is really cool. But the Disney stuff is the hook for me, right? The story's secondary, and I'm just loving everything I'm going through. Twilight Town, the characters you run into there, a lot of the systems, the bistro.
With Little Chef.
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff going on. I know you guys probably had hype through the roof for this game more than I did. I'm enjoying it. At the end of the year, I don't know where it's going to fall in terms of game of the year for me. I doubt there's going to be another game I play this year that I'll have more fun in and enjoy, but I don't know if it'll be the best game I played all year. You know what I mean? I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily, but I'm really enjoying my time with it. What about you guys? What are your impressions?
Yeah, I'll be quick because I'm only like an hour in.
Okay.
I haven't had enough time yet, and it's been killing me, by the way. I'm like right now, I'm really tempted to be like, screw you guys, and just kind of go and hop on. But so I'm still in like the Olympus world, and the voice acting. I mean, I'm sure I'll get to more levels and be like, ooh, yeah, that's not a good match. But to me, what kind of stands out more than that is the dialogue, like the actual writing and the sentences are goofy as hell. Like some of those first conversations between Sora, Donald, and Goofy, like when they're on the ship and like trying to figure out how to get to Olympus, and it's like, oh, I forgot to be let my heart be my guiding key, and then all of a sudden he knows where the fuck to go. It's like really, I mean, and that's what this series has been and is, and like as bad as some of that is, I really freaking love it.
Well, the worst part is some of that can be cleaned up with like better editing, in my opinion. Like if you just cut the scene sooner instead of waiting for no reason.
A lot of cutscenes.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say next is and I'm really early on, but so far it's like, oh yikes! You like have one fight and then there's another cutscene. You walk into the next area, another cutscene.
Stop and go, yeah.
And it's all not that these cutscenes are so far pretty relevant and important things are going on. Not to get into specifics, but it just the flow of it so far. I'm like, I just want to play. I want to get to that awesome combat some more because it feels phenomenal, like you said, Jared.
Speaking of dialogue, did you see how they couldn't probably find a voice match for Danny DeVito, so Phil doesn't talk at all?
Yeah, dude. I swear to God, I noticed that when it was like one scene where I was like, what? And he just didn't talk, and I was like, they couldn't find it. And they've had him in other games. See, here's the thing with your issue, Jared. Especially with like the side games, they have, it's kind of part of the series that you kind of just have to get along with. Yeah, we didn't take all of the Disney vault and pick out the massive amount of famous actors and voice actors and bring them all back and pay them millions
for the DS game. So,
you kind of throughout the whole series, I've kind of just had to reconcile with that and get over it, and it can be more drawing for some than others. I've certainly noticed it. I'm not going to say it's not there at all, but
we got James Woods, though.
Yeah, that's another thing is you'll have some that'll come up, and James Woods every time Hades has been in the series, he's been there. And
fucking
there's
guy,
some of them
man.
that come back for their roles and just nail it, and Hades is one of those.
He's so good as Hades. It's like one of my favorite
he's
Disney
great.
characters, man. Oh,
He's
I
great.
love it so much. Yeah. Sorry, Dom. Go ahead. We cut you off there.
No, I mean, that was really it. I haven't played enough to say much more, and it's just tiny little things that just are part of the series. Ultimately, I mean, when you're this deep into it, that stuff you kind of learn to love, and that's what makes it Kingdom Hearts what it is. A lot of that, obviously, I mean, critique it, of course, but I mean, I'm into it. Like I'm loving I want to let my heart be my guiding key, you guys. So.
Real quick before we get to Jordan, because I know he has a lot to say. Andrew, if I were to tell you to guess what the loading screens were for this game, what would you think they were?
Jesus fucking Christ.
I'm gonna say like Disney rides.
No, it's a fourth
That's a
wall.
good guess.
It's a good
would
guess.
make sense.
That would make sense. It's a weird fourth wall breaking social media post from the characters.
They're supposed to look like Instagram posts.
Yeah,
They're specifically photo based with hashtags.
but they're like breaking the fourth wall, so they're commenting on something that they were a part of. You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
is part of the story. It's very weird. It's totally
meant
Kingdom
to be
Hearts.
like super fan servicey.
Oh.
And it just comes off as like, what in the fuck is
They don't do hashtags. They do like the Kingdom Hearts symbol with the hashtag in it, and then the hashtag.
bad.
It's ooh. I
That's
saw
bad.
those and I was like, ew.
Yeah.
Well, one of the new devices in the game is a gummy phone that you get and allows you to like take pictures in the game. There's a lot of like gameplay mechanics
Which is
thrown
like
into
a
there.
fucking thick ass Fisher Price thing. It's like
Yeah.
the size of a Bible.
Looks like a OG BlackBerry. I just wanted to ask because no one would ever guess that's what the loading screens were. They're so weird.
Yeah,
yeah.
that is really, really weird.
It is weird. It's
Also-
totally Square Enix style.
Also, Dom, you remember that I messaged you about Toy World? Let's just get a random guess. Why do you think I said message me when you get to Toy World?
Oh, at this point, probably Woody's voice actor. I don't know. Otherwise,
Are you talking about the
No,
opening
that
cinematic,
would-
Jordan?
Yeah.
That's not a spoiler. Just saying opening cinematic. Very, very Square Enix. Yeah.
But, like, it's... I don't even want to say anything, but, like...
I'll get there.
Yeah.
you'll
Just let
Uh,
me experience it myself.
Jordan, what were you gonna give us your impressions? I know you've been waiting a long time for this game.
Okay. Yeah, I've waited very long. I've been a fan of Kingdom Hearts, pretty much from the start, and back on the PS2 days, have played... I guess I haven't ever touched Recoded, which is a mobile port to DS that then they just ripped the cutscenes for in the latest collection, so that's the only game I haven't ever touched. But I played all the games besides that, and I know the story of Recoded. Not that it fucking matters. And that's one of the very few. Even though they bring it up, it's still one of the very few side games that actually does not matter at all. But yeah, there is a lot of baggage with this series, and that's what I'll say. Kind of like with your biggest issue, Dom, is kind of like the cheesiness of it and how far it goes off of that cliff.
It's like
I mean-
it's like Bethesda's bugs to some extent. You kind of love it, even though it's not good.
Well,
I don't know.
it's not even that. What I think it is for me is that this game, Kingdom Hearts 3, is the sequel, first of all, to Kingdom Hearts 2, the mainline sequel to Kingdom Hearts 2. Yes, it's also a sequel to like Kingdom Hearts 3D, the most recent game in the series besides the mobile game, but it's not super fan servicey. I mean, there's goofy nods here and there with like the Instagram loading screens or whatever, but really what it is I think it's not even like a love letter. It's just what they did their absolute best to give the fans what they've been pining for and asking for and waiting for all these years, and giving them, like I said, the true follow-up, the proper follow-up to Kingdom Hearts 2, which Kingdom Hearts 2 obviously deserves. It deserved it a long time ago. Funny enough, I was remembering a friend of mine saying, because he didn't have a PS3 at the time during that generation, but he was a big Kingdom Hearts fan back from PS2, and he was like, "Oh, dude, whenever Kingdom Hearts 3 comes out,
Oh,
I'm just
God.
gonna have to come over. I'm gonna come over and just play your PS3 bit by bit and beat the game on your PS3." And I'm like, wow, that was a long time ago.
He must have been excited for Final Fantasy 15 and Last Guardian as well. Playing those on PS3.
I remember that dude, Jared, showing me on YouTube, like, bro, look at Final Fantasy 13 versus 13. Look how cool this trailer is for Final Fantasy versus 13.
Poor guy.
So, yeah. But, anyways, it has been a long time coming. There has been a lot of side games. The side games are important because, you know, this big, giant, convoluted story, it's all important. For me, I like the story because I like the fact that they originally had Final Fantasy and Disney characters, and then what's grown out of the series is this special story. So I appreciate that they are willing to, like, actually give us the answers that we're looking for. I had to do a lot of research. I had to go back and watch a lot of stuff to get my mind wrapped around it. So it sucks that that's the case, but it is the case. It is what it is. There's not really any changing that. And for that to be the case, I think they did a great job of delivering, like I said, on that follow-up promise. So, yeah, the gameplay, I think my biggest complaint is the fact that, you know, Dom, which games did you play going back through the series?
1 and 2, Chain of Memories, Birth by Sleep, and I think that was it.
Okay. Quick question: did you like the Chain of Memories card system?
I mean, at the time, I had been... I don't remember how old I was. It was when it came out. I got it, like, on release.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I guess Chain of Memories is just
it.
Cutscenes. Chain of Memories is just cutscenes on the latest collection. Anyways.
Oh, maybe, yeah. I don't know.
So, yeah, let's talk about between Birth by Sleep 1 and 2. I guess you didn't play 3D, the HD version. Yeah, because you said you didn't have that other collection with Fragmentary Passage on it.
Right.
So yeah, those are the 3 best games in the series other than this one, and I would say, I think you can agree with this. Those games are not pushovers. They're not, even though they've got Disney and stuff, they're not like kiddie games that you can just walk in and then, like, there are big bosses. Kingdom Hearts is known for, honestly, like, legendary bosses, not just in their design, but in the actual battles themselves. The combat in these games has never been just a walk in the park, I would say. And unfortunately, Kingdom Hearts 3 is way too fucking easy. And that's my biggest complaint, is that it's playing on normal, which I didn't complete any of the games when I went back through on the collection. But I played a little bit of both 1 and Birth by Sleep on my second playthrough, and I think, yeah, like I said, those games are much better balanced as far as difficulty goes. This game is ridiculous. I was at one point like, I wonder what the death screen looks like. And I'm 10 hours into this game, and I still have not died yet. And I die, you know, multiple times in a regular Kingdom Hearts game, just because, you know, it's a decently difficult game, nothing too big, but you're certainly going to meet some challenges along the way, along the adventure. And I've seen some people echo this sentiment now that I've been willing to kind of look at what other people are saying, now that I've got into it a little bit. But I mean, it is ridiculously easy, and it's all honestly beginning to mar my playthrough, because I'm wishing that I had played it on Proud Mode, which I don't like playing the other games on Proud Mode because they get a little ridiculous. But this one, it's gotten out of hand to where I'm like, I should have died at least once. I've faced a bunch of bosses, and I think the weird thing about this is there's just so many fucking power-ups, and they do a pretty good job of explaining it to you, of guiding you through the tutorials and building them up along the way.
A lot of menus.
But there are a lot of menus, a lot of tutorials to read, but the combat is very dynamic. You have a lot of choices, but I think they almost put too many tools in your belt and give you too many big guns, because you can really just go to town on people if you're chaining together these power-ups, because you have power-ups between you and Donald, you and Goofy, all 3 of you. You have power-ups between the characters of the world you're in. You have power-ups of just Sora, and there's like each individual Keyblade has a different power-up. And then you have magic power-ups outside of just your regular magic attacks.
It's a lot.
So many different things. Basically, what will happen is your triangle button will key up these different power-ups that you have. And there's times where I have 3 that are ready to go, and it just has a timer. Like, you have 30 seconds to use this, you have 15 seconds to use this, and so you just go through them all. and you just obliterate your foes because they have, like I said, I think they've just given you too many overpowered tools. So that's my biggest complaint with the game. It doesn't seem like it's changing, like I said, 10 hours in.
Yeah. Before we hop into the news, I have a lore question. So you're going to have to... It's a two-part question, Jordan. Dom, too, you might know. So I'm pretty caught up on everything. I know everything that's going on for the most part. My one thing that I'm lost on, and I don't know if we're supposed to be lost on it, the two people playing chess at the beginning, are we supposed to know who they are?
Yes.
Yeah. That's Xehanort and Ericus.
Yeah. Ericus,
Xehanort
yeah.
Okay, so I figured...
Antagonist.
Yeah, I know who Xehanort is. I figured the guy with the white hair was a young Xehanort. I just didn't know who the other one was supposed to be.
Ericus
it's his
actually
robe,
voiced,
you can tell.
in Birth by Sleep, he's voiced by Mark Hamill, and he is the master of Ventus, Aqua, and Terra. And,
younger version of him.
Characters. Yeah, it's younger Xehanort, younger Ericus before.
Because when he's older, he has the Fu Manchu, right? When he's older.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, got you.
So
okay.
this is how they start the game, and this is where you get into like. Kingdom Hearts 3 is not concerned if you don't know the lore. Kingdom Hearts 3 is not concerned if you haven't played the other games or if you like the combat or not. It's like, oh, it's speaking to me and the YouTubers that I've been watching over the years about Kingdom Hearts. It's speaking to the people that are the diehard fans, and if you're unable to, recall who Master Ericus is, it's like too fucking bad, dude, and that sucks for a lot of people, but I think it ends up being for the best because the people that are going to end up championing this game are the ones that are diehard and would know the deep shit.
So in the actual intro cinematic with the Hirokari song or whatever, it has that same scene of, I know, I can't recall her name. Whatever. Just Face My Fears. That's
Harry
the song.
Carey, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a crazy good song, and
Utada
she's
Hikaru
hit some kind of chart that she hadn't before. But anyway, in that cinematic,
song, by the way, Skrillex does the beat, by the way.
Yeah, and it's a great song. I had it on Spotify on repeat
dope,
today.
Dude.
But
that's pretty fucking cool.
But during that cinematic, they actually show that same scene with them playing chess, and I called that out immediately, like, oh, that's so cool. That must be a young Xehanort or whatever. But then during that cinematic, it also like shows his face, and then he looks up, and it flashes into like an older version of Xehanort really quick to kind of indicate, like, oh, by the way, that's who this motherfucker
I think
is.
That
Look out.
I knew it was Xehanort. I just didn't know who that was a young version of that was sitting across from
The other
him.
guy.
Yeah.
Did you guys watch the recaps that are built into the game?
No.
Yes.
I was actually pretty impressed. It's a 5-part recap, but I think it's totaling less than 20 minutes with all 5 parts. And I had already been watching recaps on YouTube, but this is built into the game. Memory Archive is what it's called. And it does a pretty good job of keying you in on a lot of stuff that you're going to need to know. Because, dude, once Shion and fucking Vanitas get there, and they're just like people that are chunks of other people's hearts taken off and like turned into another being, like it's going to get ridiculous, and I know by the end of it it's going to be out of whack, but I'm hoping that they can kind of, this is supposed to be the end of the Xehanort saga because he has like different vessels. Currently he's like looking like a young Xehanort because he's taken over Terra's body, and so Xemnas is his nobody, Ansem is his heartless, Ansem is actually Ansem the imposter, Ansem the wise is the real Ansem. Okay, so I'm not even going to go.
But Ansem the wise is actually in disguise as this other guy.
And after all that,
after
all that, Xehanort like goes back in time and like grabs 13 more versions of himself or something to replace the organization. It's like,
well, yeah, he's basically like built up a second version of Organization 13 to like be
the real Organization 13.
His 13 vessels, that could actually be the 13 pieces of darkness that can go up against
the 7 pieces of light.
To rebuild the Keyblade, which is the ultimate weapon, which will then allow him to harness the power of Kingdom Hearts, which is the power of all hearts, the hearts of all worlds combined.
The crazy thing is that like parts of Kingdom Hearts are really cool. like when you die, you become two different things, and like there's a lot of pieces of it that are really cool.
When you turn into a heartless, you have a nobody if your heart is strong enough. That's a cool thing.
But then they no, then we're gonna add time travel, and then we're gonna add this, and then we're gonna have to retcon Mickey not having a shirt on when he's in the darkness, and then all of this stuff of on top layers on top of layers.
All right, that's where you lost me. Mickey being shirtless.
He's shirtless.
Well, that's like classic Mickey. He's just talking about Mickey in shorts, in his red shorts. But I do enjoy the Disney stuff. It's like, oh, cool, we have King Mickey, and he's a Keyblade master, and sometimes he's wearing organization robes, and it's just also another thing is people that are in the organization, and then there's people that are just wearing organization robes because Riku wants to put it on. Why not? It's just crazy shit.
I actually have a question for you after you record about one of the characters in the stories, because I have a feeling that something's going to happen, but I want you to tell me if it's bullshit, doesn't make sense. But we'll get into that.
Yeah, I'll say
off of the podcast.
There are no holds barred. Like I said, Shion's coming back. Vanitas is going to be in there. The most random. They're not random, but the most deep cut shit is coming back. And
I'm just ready for Aqua, dude.
One of the main characters is named Yen Sid, which is a Disney backwards.
Yeah, but that's before. Well, I guess they might have.
You didn't know that, Dom?
But he was
no.
Master Yen Sid. You didn't realize that was Disney?
I never knew that.
Oh my god.
Wow. He's like, Yen Sid, this is a pretty cool name, dude. I like your hat.
With his creepy eyes that don't blink.
Yeah, he's really poorly animated. Most of the animation is gorgeous. This is a gorgeous game. I will say, Dom, on PS4 Pro.
It's good.
No HDR, unfortunately. There's two different modes, though. There's default or standard, and then there's stable mode. But it doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. I would say stay on standard or default. That is 60 frames per second at 1440p. And then if you change it to the stable mode, which this doesn't make any sense, it's a lower frame rate, but it's at 4K. It's full 2160p.
Sounds backwards.
So, yeah, it doesn't make any sense why stable mode would be the lower frame rate. It's saying it's stable 4K graphics is what
resolution,
saying,
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't make any fucking sense, but I would leave it on the default mode for PS4 Pro because it's very confusing, but that is the higher frame rate, and you will notice a difference. But it is a gorgeous game. Most of the animations are flawless, but yeah, there's some big-eyed characters like Yen Sid where, most of the lip syncing is good, but then some characters fall to the wayside, and Yen Sid is certainly one of them.
For Andrew's sanity's sake, let's hop into the news now. I think he's heard enough about Xehanort, and
it's all interesting. It's just very very deep.
Well, the thing that sucks is it is very convoluted. I don't think even diehard Kingdom Hearts fans won't. If they deny that it's convoluted, I don't think they're realizing the story they're paying attention to.
There's so many moments where I'm understanding what they're referencing, what's going on in the scene, what they're talking about, and I'm still you guys are out of your fucking minds.
Yeah.
This is so weird how you're and this guy, you remember when that guy got to be a Heartless and he went to the Dark World and then he came back? It's shut the fuck up sometimes.
They try to one-up themselves all the time. It's because I said, there's different pieces that are really good. It just mashed up into a ball. Anyways. Yeah. Quickie
Real
news.
Quick, Jared, one tiny little bit about about the question that you asked.
Okay.
In the chess scene.
Yeah.
You know where Xehanort looks up and sees the Keyblade on the wall, the one that has the eyeball in it?
Yeah, that's one that can see into the future.
Right. So that, just real quick, is from the Master of Masters, who is from way back, the
OG, yeah.
The Book of Prophecies. He's from the before the Keyblade War with the Foretellers. The Foretellers, that's what I was trying to And so yeah, basically he ripped his eyeball out, shoved it in his Keyblade, and gave it to his apprentice and said, as you go forward through time, I'll be able to watch and look at the future and know the future. That's why he can write the prophecies, because his eyeball is traveling through time into the future.
Because why wouldn't he?
Well, the cool thing is, whether you like Kingdom Hearts or not, it introduced one of the coolest weapons. Like, Keyblades are some of the coolest weapons ever made. Yeah. Which, real quick, the thing I hate is when you go to open a chest and they don't put the key into the keyhole, you smack it on top. Which is like, why put the keyhole there then? Why put the keyhole there?
Definitely kind of weird. I don't like that you can't upgrade Keyblades. You can't upgrade magic like in former games. It's all kind of just like you're more like leveling up your character. I don't know. There's some nitty gritty stuff that as I get like 40 or 50 hours, I'll give you more of like the gameplay mechanics.
It's just a weird animation choice because it's like you have a Keyblade, there's a chest with a keyhole. Oh, how am I going to open it? I'm going to walk up to it, smack it on top twice, and the chest opens. It's like, why put the keyhole on it then? Anyways.
Well, even when they do it, they'll like, sometimes in some of the games, they'll jump backwards and point the Keyblade at it, and then it'll like shoot a beam at the keyhole. So they would never actually just be a pedestrian and stick the key in the keyhole.
Well, the light at least actually makes sense because it's a key to a keyhole, right? Smacking on the top is like, what are we, barbarians? Anyways, quickie news. We have a round of a bunch of quick news stories we'll get to, and then we'll get to the topic, which is revolved around the Metroid Prime 4 news, which happened the day after we recorded, as it always does.
And how it's going to be affecting Kingdom Hearts in the coming weeks.
So the first bit of news, Damon Baker, who was the former head of partner management at Nintendo, you would recognize him as the guy that was in a lot of their Treehouse events. He had the like square frame glasses and a bit of spiky hair. He was in charge of handling all of the third party partnerships for Nintendo. Pretty important. He was big. He was a big in terms of getting indie games onto the Switch. He actually recently announced that he was leaving Nintendo, and people were wondering where he was going to end up. He recently announced that he's joining Xbox as the head of portfolio. So it's a pretty big hire. Obviously, I think they need to have more people there at Xbox now that they're transitioning to focusing on Xbox Game Pass, because that in and of itself, outside of the Xbox and Microsoft Store, is a huge portfolio to manage. And those are partnerships that they have to deal with in terms of when is this contract up? When is this contract renewed? It's kind of like the Netflix thing of like you have somebody that has to handle those specific deals. I think it's a great hire for Xbox. I don't know if we're going to see direct benefit from that. I don't think he's going to change anything. I think it's just more so getting somebody in place to handle their current portfolio, and it's kind of making a separate job, right? I guarantee you this is probably somebody's job alongside a couple of other jobs, and they decided to hire somebody on that's just the head of the portfolio, period. Because they have Chris Booty, who's in charge of their first-party studios. So this is Chris Booty.
Okay.
Yep, Booty.
Man,
do you guys
what if his middle initial was P?
Anything to say about Damon Baker? Anything to say about Damon Baker joining? Next news story. Apparently, you guys don't want to talk about Damon Baker. So the next news story here.
I think it's interesting jumping ship from Nintendo to Microsoft. Obviously, I mean, not that couldn't happen, and it probably happens all the time, like first party studios or whatever. But the gaming industry has that kind of like poaching thing that's been. There's a deep history of poaching where Japanese game publishers used to have their devs credit themselves with like code names and stuff so that they couldn't be poached by other studios. So interesting that this is still kind of continuing to this day.
Well, and him having experience with more Japanese devs than probably a lot of people at Xbox have, working for Nintendo. That's actually probably going to be huge too, being able to talk to that market and those developers that Xbox doesn't really have a foothold in. I mean, we've seen Phil Spencer visit Japan a little bit over the last couple of years and kind of build those relationships, especially with like Square Enix as of late and Capcom. Andrew, you
if
actually...
If he does need help, he could always just call over at Christopher P. Bottom and ask him if he has any tips and tricks for the industry.
Oh, Christopher P. Bottom. Man, that'd be real unfortunate if your middle name was actually P, like it wasn't short for anything, and your last name was Booty.
Oh, jeez.
Andrew, earlier you mentioned this when we were talking about Resident Evil 2 at the top of the show, how well it's doing in terms of sales. Capcom recently announced that it's shipped 3 million units in its first week, which, remember, this isn't sold through, but usually if that many units are shipped, they're probably going to get sold. So in comparison, the original RE2 lifetime sold 4.96 million. So in its first week, it got more than half. We'd assume that in the coming months, Resident Evil 7 sold very well. So with a first week sales of 3 million units, or at least ship, we could totally see that catching up and easily passing it, I'd assume. The other interesting number they released was that the one-shot demo had 4.7 million downloads, which is crazy. It's a lot of people wanting to play Resident Evil 2 before it comes out. I would be interested to see the numbers in terms of what platforms those downloads were on. I'm assuming a majority of them, or at least maybe not majority, but the bigger slice of the pie, because RE2 came out on PC, right?
The new one?
Yeah.
Yeah, the new one came out on PC, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm assuming it would be, what, PlayStation, Xbox, and then PC in terms of split?
Yeah.
I would assume.
Probably.
Makes most sense. Obviously, PlayStation's number one. Speaking of PlayStation, we had another weird news story related to PlayStation this week. So, Nebelian, who's a guy who tweets out deals and news on Twitter, he tweeted out that he got this press release from PlayStation saying, we're holding an event in February, the future of Sony, come join us at the PlayStation Theater in New York, yada, yada, yada. About 5 minutes after he posted that tweet, Jason Schreier replied and said, this is fake. And he showed a screenshot of the email they had received, the press release. And it was a Photoshop press release made to look like an actual PlayStation event. And the email was made to look like an actual email. It was like sie.playstation.gmail.com. So a bunch of people got duped. Luckily, it didn't spread that fast. But yeah, somebody was trying to fake. People are really excited about PlayStation 5. And there's a split. And I want to actually, we've talked about this numerous times, Andrew, over the last couple of weeks. And I want to hear your opinion on it real quick. People are divided as to why PlayStation is sitting out this year in terms of E3, right? You have people in the camp of they're going to be announcing PlayStation 5 this year, so they don't want to deal with E3. They're just going to skip E3 and then probably announce PlayStation 5 in the fall. Then there's people in the camp of they're at the end of their life cycle for PS4. They're going to announce the PS5 next year, but this year they're in this weird position that if they do E3, they're going to be talking about the same games they talked about last year. So they're skipping this event and going to be announcing PS5 early next year, and then it releases in the fall. Where do you fall on that in terms of why PlayStation's skipping E3 this year?
I think it's possibly, like you said, that PS5 could be coming out late next year. To the point where they feel like everything that they've shown or announced so far is like, that's going to be the end of this generation's cycle. And so, like, kind of what's the point of being at E3 when everything that they've shown is already been announced? I mean, it's really up to them. And, like, that they, like they did PSX every year too. And then they didn't do that this last year either. And I don't really know if that's maybe the same thing. Possibly, could be. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't really bother me just because E3 kind of gets a little weird every year. And I don't really enjoy it as much as I do, or as I used to anymore. So, I mean, it's always nice to see something big announced, regardless of, like how much content they're going to announce. At least if it's like a big announcement, there's always some excitement around that. But over the last couple of years, I kind of feel like it's died down. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't bother me. I think it's a good call, especially if that's what everyone's kind of speculating, is that next year could be the year, or like the very end of next year could be like the year of PlayStation 5. I think them sitting out is probably a smart call. So
yeah, so people are like kind of on the edge of their seats waiting for PlayStation to say something about this year, and I think this was just a jokester taking advantage of that. So it is what it is. I actually believe it or not, I trust Nibelian. He's a good source for deals and just news in general. So he tweeted that out, and I was like, oh, this is a great news story to talk about this week on the podcast. And then 5 minutes later, Jason Schreier replied, and everyone's like, thanks, Jason Schreier, you canceled PS5. Thank you. We have some Nintendo Switch news. Turns out it sold 32.27 million units lifetime, which is already 1 million shy of the 64's lifetime sales, which is huge. The crazy thing about this number is that because we knew around September that it had sold about 23 million units, about 22 point something, in the 3 months to end the year, it sold about 10 million units in its final 3 months. Led in large part by Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which sold 12 million units in less than a month, which is crazy.
That is crazy.
People are saying Super Smash Bros. Isn't a system seller. Apparently it is. It's, according to people who are crunching the numbers, Nintendo was trying to hit 20 million Switches sold this fiscal year. They're probably going to hit about 17. So they're not going to hit their target, but it's still a huge amount. We talked about last week that the Switch had the best December for hardware since 2013, which is really impressive in and of itself. There were rumors coming up recently that there's going to be a smaller model coming out this year. Who knows if that happens. It'd be smart with the release of the new Pokemon game to have a cheaper, more mobile-friendly experience. We'll see what happens there. I don't think any of us are shocked, right, that it sold 32 million units. I love the Nintendo Switch.
I mean, that's just such a big number, dude. I mean, there's 80-some, or is it 90-some million PS4s?
84, I think.
Right. But
and
of
42 Xbox Ones. That recently they announced 42 million. Yeah.
And PS4s and Xbox Ones have been on the market more than twice as long as the Switch, right? So if you think about, the pace, even though the Switch is, of course, like smaller numbers still, the pace that it's selling at is kind of freaking absurd. Then also consider they're not getting, major third-party support. There's no Call of Duty and Red Dead and GTA on Switch. I mean, we got like Skyrim and a couple ports.
You're getting year-old ports, right?
You're getting old ports.
Yeah.
You're getting Nintendo first party, which, like you just said, you can't discount. Like Smash is a big deal, and Odyssey and Kart are big deals. Those are big games, but
them indies.
Those have always been there. Kart and like Smash, like those are more or less ports. People argue those are ports of the Wii U games. Like Nintendo's always had those first parties. So it's crazy that the Switch has been able to sell this much with this third-party support, the little third-party support they've gotten. So
yeah,
to me, the most exciting part about that news is like it's just going to encourage more third parties to start making games for the Switch, and hopefully we should just see more and more ports. And I hate to see like gimped versions of games like WWE or whatever. That wasn't my thing or whatever, but I hate to see like shitty ports of where the real version is actually on Xbox and PlayStation. And you get half the game modes on Switch. Like that sucks. No one wants that really. But I think hopefully this encourages more third parties, and EA and Activision and Ubisoft and everyone. Bethesda's already on board as much as they can be. But hopefully we start seeing more of that, because I would love to be able to start buying some third parties on Switch that even if it's graphically lower and not doesn't perform as well, if it's equivalent, for people like me, it's way easier to get time playing on Switch because it's mobile than on a console. So I don't know. That's what's exciting to me, is the potential increased support from third parties.
Well, and the thing is Nintendo mobile handheld devices, portable gaming, they sell usually very well, right? The 3DS, the Game Boy. Mm-hmm. So True. This is a hybrid, so it's like you're getting the best of both worlds in terms of marketing and sales. Thank God they had this return. I know some people, me partially too, was like, man, I hope the next Nintendo console fails so they just go third-party publisher route, and I can just play all their first-party games on my Xbox or my PlayStation. But to see this already triple the sales, essentially, because the Wii U ended at, 13? It's almost there to triple the sales lifetime for that console. Nintendo's probably super excited to have they went from Wii, which is a major success, right, to the Wii U, which was one of the worst failures in terms of a hardware launch, and then now they're having a tremendous success again. It's really crazy. People forget that Nintendo's, I think, been in business since the late 1800s, right? before they were a video game company, they were something else.
Right.
And then they transitioned to video games, and they've had that company stay around for a very long time because they adapt, even when they fail. So,
when you're hot, and when you're not, you're not.
Adding to this Nintendo Switch sales numbers, Matt Piscatella stated that I forgot where he got the research from. Obviously, he works for MPD, so he has access to a lot of numbers we don't. But he said that 50% of Switch owners have a PS4 and 40% have an Xbox One. And he was basically stating that like the Switch is owned by people who usually own at least another console, which is something we all assumed, but it's cool to see actual numbers on that.
Yeah.
And some of those are probably crossover. Like I own all three, right? So I fall in both the 50 and 40%. I think
All right.
all three of us own all three, right? Or no, Dom, you
Yeah,
don't have
we
an
do.
Xbox One,
Nice.
or do you?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, okay. I remember you playing stuff on Windows 10 on the app, so I couldn't remember
Yeah.
if you actually had the one or not,
Yeah.
or if you had sold it. Another story that I don't know if any of us are interested in, but they announced that Dr. Mario World, which is a mobile version of the Dr. Mario franchise, is coming to mobile in summer 2019, along with the news that the Mario Kart mobile game got delayed to later this year. I liked Fire Emblem Heroes a lot. Super Mario World, Super Mario Run was like whatever. I don't know. Do these Nintendo mobile games do it for you guys? Are you guys excited for either of them?
No.
Yeah. Yeah. Andrew?
Not much of a mobile guy.
Yeah, I just feel like if it's a Nintendo property, it should be on my Switch.
Exactly.
I don't
I
want
mean-
to play it on my phone.
The thing is, at least Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is on the Switch. Dr. Mario World coming out to mobile is like, I know Dr. Mario isn't their largest franchise, but I'm sure there's some diehard fans that are upset that the newest release in that franchise is going to be a mobile game. Maybe they're excited that there's actually a new release. I don't know.
Better than nothing.
Maybe
probably.
they're just glad it exists. Lastly, before we hop into the big news here, we were talking about, PlayStation has sold between 84 and 90 some million units. The Nintendo Switch is already at 32. Obviously, the Xbox is at 41 or 42. They recently reported, which is good. Those are really good numbers. But you're seeing the Nintendo Switch catch up, and you're like, oh, that shows how badly the 2013 announcement went for Xbox, right? Of how they just didn't get out of the gate very strongly, and they've actually seen great sales success the last couple of years. They recently reported their numbers from the gaming division of Microsoft, and some of these numbers are crazy. So they currently have 64 million Xbox Live users. That's across Xbox, Windows 10, and phones. So obviously that's not unique users, but that's users in general. 64 million is still a big number. But this is where the numbers actually matter, because people talk about how far ahead PlayStation is, which it is, but that doesn't mean Microsoft and Xbox don't make tons of money themselves. Annual revenue for Xbox was $11.5 billion in 2018, which was up 23% year over year from 2017, which is huge.
Game Pass.
It was primarily driven by software and services growth. And that information came from Daniel Ahmad over on Twitter at ZHugeX. Really cool guy to follow in terms of MPDs and numbers as well. That's not surprising. We've talked about numerous times on this podcast how people are kind of overlooking all of these services that Microsoft's giving to their players and giving them options. Game Pass, huge. They're obviously pulling the Netflix route of having people get in at a low price point and hoping they just stick around for the subscription, right? And so almost every subscription service does. Do these numbers surprise you guys that their annual profits were up 23% in 2018 after all of the talk of like, oh man, Xbox needs to change?
Not really. I think they're killing it, man. And not only that, I think it's hard for people to wrap their mind around the fact that all three of the big console manufacturers are thriving and doing well in the current industry. And there's enough room for everybody as far as, maybe not a fourth, but in PCs thriving. So it's like, yeah, we can all be here and enjoying the games and getting different experiences from each company. And I think they definitely make each other better, and Microsoft is absolutely sharpening the other two by how bad they can make them look as far as, I would just say, customer appreciation and that bond that they seem to have.
Yeah. And I mean, a big thing that Xbox did in 2018 that people don't talk about, and this doesn't translate to financial gain because they're not earning money on it, the adaptive controller, right? That thing is awesome. Right. And it's a real shame that PlayStation or Nintendo don't have those type of accessibility options for people. And my hope is that the adaptive controller sees a strong life cycle and people actually, use it at children's hospitals or disability centers or just personally, and it catches on and it forces the hand of Nintendo and PlayStation to have their own solution.
Right.
Because that is a segment of gamers we don't really talk about. None of us really suffer from crippling disabilities or anything. It's not something we really think about. We pick up a controller and we can use it. For some people, that's not the case.
That shit.
Yeah.
I certainly think about it.
And the more people we have that we give them the ability to play games, the better our communities can be, right? So I just think it's a really cool thing that people don't really talk about in terms of what Xbox did in 2018. That was one of my favorite things that happened last year, was the adaptive controller. And I really hope we see Nintendo and PlayStation follow and do something of their own, because that'd be really cool. It's easy PR points too, man. I know it's a lot of R&D, and you have to work on it and focus on it. It's gonna be a lost investment in terms of getting money back for it, but it's a good PR move, and it allows more people to play games. You know what I mean? So,
well, the coolest thing about it, Jared, and I don't know if you guys have seen this yet, and it just shows how much it means to them at Microsoft, is, if I'm not mistaken, it was just earlier today,
the commercial.
They announced that the commercial is going to play during the Super Bowl, which obviously that's an expensive slot, and they could easily put a Forza commercial up there, a Gears of War, Halo commercial that would be more immediately profitable, for them. But instead, they're choosing to spend an ass load of money on putting this adaptive controller commercial in the Super Bowl. That says a lot about them and their priorities. I don't know. I just thought that was really cool.
It's a good move for them to do it, especially because of how many people are watching the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great exposure for families with children or other family members with disabilities, and I think that's really big. It is a good PR move, but it also shows that Xbox has a culture that's willing to expand, and even if it is a loss in terms of money, it's it's just a good thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, they also recently passed Apple in terms of the most valuable company, so they have a lot in their war chest in terms of being able to do this type of stuff and not worry about it, right? So
yeah.
That's it for the quickie news. I want to get to the big news story. A lot to read here. We're going to handle this in segments, but I'm going to read through this here. So there's some additional information provided by Imran Khan over on Twitter. He gave some of the updates that I'll get to. He obviously works at Game Informer.
This is the leak that Metroid Prime's coming out next month?
Exactly, yeah.
Shut the fuck.
So Nintendo announced on their official channels that after much consideration, they've decided to restart development on Metroid Prime 4 from scratch. They stated that it would be helmed by
Christ.
They stated that it would be helmed by Kensuke Tanabe in partnership with Retro Studios. They actually partnered together for the original Prime trilogy. Though no developer was ever revealed, it was heavily speculated that it was being helmed by a team at Bandai Namco, which makes sense. They were also working on Smash Bros. Ultimate. Shortly after Nintendo's new video went live, reporters stated that according to their sources, Retro Studios made a mock-up demo and pitched Nintendo on developing Metroid Prime 4. So it wasn't just they stopped and they're like, oh, let's go to Retro. They heard pitches from people, and obviously Retro had a pitch for them. We're going to get into some developments from Imran Khan. Off the bat, what did this announcement do for you guys? I know we're not all huge Metroid guys, but I'm pretty sure all of us were looking forward to it because it's going to be another first-party game on the Nintendo Switch. How did this news hit you guys?
Well, I was very surprised that they're starting it from scratch.
Yeah.
And that it could have gone that poorly that they weren't able to reconcile and pull something from the ashes of this horrible fire that we've just seen. Because we're multiple years past that announcement, and they didn't have anything then, and they don't have anything now, and so that is very not good. But I will say, the good that I think is going to come out of this is how candid they were, and coming especially from Japan, which is notorious for being kind of less connected and more kind of in the shadows about the inner workings of their business and their development practices, and less willing to be open and honest about mistakes, and not even just Japan but Nintendo specifically. It's very interesting to see them come out like this and possibly be changing the way that situations like this are handled in the future, because it seems just like in general over the course or across the industry, people are becoming more open about, hey, we have this issue, we want to work on it, we're trying our best, and give us some time, and that's what this seemed like. So that was very interesting to me.
Yeah. Andrew, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I think what I really enjoyed about, obviously, I am upset about Metroid being delayed, but I think the way Nintendo handled it was really slick and very open. A lot of people are just like, here's a post about why we feel that we need to delay this game, or I personally haven't seen a game where they were like, yeah, so we're scrapping the whole original thing and we're gonna actually start over.
How can you be slick though? Like, I think they handled it well, but I just don't know how you can be slick when it's like, we're throwing fucking everything in the trash, man. Yeah. Well, it was just kind of like, it just seemed like it seemed really, it just was handled well. And when they did handle it as well as you could for the fire that they started. And like, sure, a lot of people are going to be upset about it, but think about it this way. Like, would you rather have a shitty game or like a really good game by the original developers for the first trilogy, which still doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Like, why did they just bring Retro back from the beginning?
And we'll get to that.
Doesn't make sense to me.
We think it's because they were busy on a different game.
Probably. So, like, I don't know. It doesn't bother me as long as the game comes out. And I think something similar happened to, like, Breath of the Wild. But they didn't scrap the whole thing. But I think there was, like, some sort of big delay. And I can't remember. It's been a while for Breath of the Wild. But, look how that game came out. And that game is really fucking good. So, I don't know.
Dom, need I remind you of the E3 demo, Dom? The Zelda HD... It was like the Wii U demo that's like totally different art style. Yeah, totally different art style than Breath of the Wild, but it's like
they said it was
the game they were going towards, and then they just
that was a tech demo
Breath of the Wild
for the console, so they were clear up front. To me, this whole thing is a prime example, no pun intended. I mean pun intended.
Jeez.
Prime example of why it's dangerous to go announcing shit so early on. I mean, I assume, and I think it's common knowledge or whatever, that studios work on a lot of projects, and most of them probably never see the light of day. And a lot of different ideas are tossed around and get started and get worked on to certain extents, but then just never come to fruition. And that can piss a lot of people off. That knowledge, if it's out in the open, of they were working on this and then it got canned. I mean, look at everything that's happening with EA right now in Star Wars. Even when you look at the big picture, they're not making enough Star Wars games that are good, but it looks even worse when we've had such a clear view of what's going on behind the scenes there. We didn't know that they're canceling studios and scrapping projects and Amy Hennig is leaving. If we didn't know all that, it wouldn't look it wouldn't look nearly as bad as it does. So like, giving the public this kind of vision into this shit so early, I mean, that to me more often than not causes problems more so than it brings advantages. But like you guys said though, like, given everything that had happened at that point, it was better that they were transparent, I guess, that we are starting over, but we're starting over with Retro, and so hopefully you all now have confidence that from here on out it's going to be done right. I guess that was the best thing to do from that point, but ideally they shouldn't have been in that situation to begin with.
It's crazy. So we've had conversations about how Japanese game development, it seems, especially with Square Enix, it's been a hard transition for them to modern game development. We've seen that with countless projects from Square Enix, right, of having long, troubled development cycles. This is kind of the first case of that for Nintendo. Usually Nintendo's the one that, like, they usually announce games when they're ready. We never usually see games delayed. Right. We never see them canceled. So this was big, and I think for them, like both Jordan and Andrew said, the transparency in it was great. Them just coming out and being very forward, being like, essentially without saying it, we screwed up. We have to restart. I think it also went over well because Retro's involved, right? If they would have said this game's starting from scratch and we're working with some other studio, people would have been okay with that, but not as okay as they are with, Retro's working on it? Okay, that's fine then. You know what I mean? They're scrapping it for the game we probably wanted then, of Retro working on their own trilogy.
It's still just like we shouldn't have known that any of this happened. We should have never even heard of anything official about Prime 4.
Well, no, he's saying
when that announcement came out, people were going so hard wanting to know about Metroid, and they were also doing the remake.
Samus Returns.
On the 3DS, and so they couldn't just put that game out after like, what is it, like Defender Force or whatever? That's a total spin-off that doesn't even have Samus in it. So
Federation Force.
Federation Force. They couldn't keep putting out games without saying, "Hey, we do have a real Metroid in development."
But the thing is that they could have been either a little cheeky or jokey with it, of like at the bottom put a subtitle of like a ways away, or it'll get here when it gets here. They literally just put the logo. They didn't even give us a developer. You know what I mean? So it left people with a bunch of questions. I think if they would have set expectations.
Now in development. So that's
but what does that mean?
Chill.
You know what I mean? So
now, well, when PlayStation says it, it's like, hey, it could be a PS5 game now in development.
I mean, yeah. Death Stranding is probably a PS5 game at this point.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'm gonna get to these couple of quotes, and then we'll talk about some of the updates. So Game Informer's Imran Khan said on Twitter, hearing that the big problem with Metroid Prime 4 development was Nintendo's experimental ad hoc development process. It was being made in parts in different countries. Khan went on to say, internal thinking was that it needs to all be under one roof to right the ship. Interestingly, Retro made the pitch for their involvement and put together a demo that Nintendo liked.
Wow.
He said some studios, for the ad hoc development process, some studios were trucking along saying it was going smoothly while it was on fire elsewhere.
Wow.
Also, going with Retro. So there's been no word by Nintendo or Retro Studios regarding their project that they were working on. They had their studio that hadn't released a game since Tropical Freeze on Wii U in 2014, right? So they've been working on something. So unsubstantiated rumors stated that they were working on a Star Fox racing game. Those rumors developed like early last year in 2018, if you guys remember.
Grand
Prix. Yes. There seems to be equal plausibility that their game could be near completion and see a release in 2019, as well as it being a collection of canceled projects with Metroid Prime 4's development opportunity coming at just the right time. So it could be either of those. We just don't know, right? And there's equal plausibility to both, that their game could release this year, or they were just working through, like Dom said, these development companies work through multiple projects and they don't always see the light of day, and maybe they were struggling with a project and not letting it, getting to where they wanted it to be, and this opportunity came up at the right time.
That'd be tough if they release 2014 as Tropical Freeze and then they're not getting another game out.
2022.
Like the 2020s, yeah, like that's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, they're a very talented studio too. I don't think Nintendo's used them to their talent level. I think they're one of the best studios Nintendo has under their belt. I would talk about other studios, but Nintendo doesn't individualize them. It's like Team 1, Team 2, Team 3, but it's like
It's very weird the way their internal development works and the way they
better that way.
First-party IP.
Before we get to the last bit, that is actually surprising news that I don't know if you guys knew about it. So since Metroid Prime 4 isn't coming out this year, that means that Animal Crossing and Pokemon are the big releases, right?
Fire Emblem.
Fire Emblem, yeah.
Well, no, I'm talking about like actual like sales
mainstream
and revenue. Fire Emblem, I don't know if it's going to be a good game or a bad game, but I don't know if it's going to sell as well as, some of their their larger scale IP.
It's no Pokemon.
Well, yeah, Pokemon sells like hotcakes. Animal Crossing is like, it's weird because if you catch that casual audience, it could sell like gangbusters. Just depends on how many of those people currently own a Switch. But do we see like a surprise announcement of another game? People have speculated an Odyssey 2, the way they did Galaxy 2, right, where they used a lot of the same assets and just built new worlds. People are speculating a possible 2D Zelda game. What do you guys expect? Is there any surprises we could possibly see, or was Metroid
third party, dude?
What do you mean?
I think there's definitely big third party stuff this year on the Switch that we don't know about yet.
Yeah, like ports, right?
Yeah, sports. I don't know, freaking anything.
I said ports, but yeah, sports games as well.
Sports. I'm thinking,
but I'm saying like
FIFA,
like a new Platinum game or something is going to release. But I'm talking about like, they usually have 3. Bayonetta 3 is a good choice. Yeah. I don't know if they would blow out their stage the same way they did with Odyssey and Breath of the Wild for that though. Because it's no. Animal Crossing is probably their blow up the stage, right? They're gonna have like an Animal Crossing town or whatever. It's just
I would say Pokemon.
Nintendo's relationship with the Pokemon company is weird because like they work hand in hand, but if they have an Animal Crossing game coming out and that's like first party Nintendo, Pokemon's technically first party too, but it's the Pokemon company, right? It's not Nintendo. They publish it, so I don't know if they would do both. You know, would they dedicate their entire stage to Pokemon? Yeah, it's weird. I think this is a ball that dropped for them. I don't think they're expecting to do this. And I think it does muddy up their plans in terms of where they're moving pieces, right, for releases. We'll see. We were supposed to usually have a Direct in January. I'm assuming we're getting it in February. They always have one at the beginning of the year. So all of these talking points could be moot in, a couple of weeks? We'll see.
Yeah.
The last part, so lastly, Emran Khan, as well as a few other people on Twitter, stated that they had numerous sources corroborate that Nintendo was planning on announcing the Metroid Prime trilogy for Switch in December of 2018. That this was the plan before coming to the realization that Metroid Prime 4 would have to restart development. According to multiple reports, the games are already finished and Nintendo has decided to postpone their announcement in lieu of the news.
I was waiting for that announcement.
I know, me too. I was so excited.
It's really disappointing to hear. Like, obviously we don't know if this is true or not, but if they were planning on Metroid Prime 4 being a 2019 game, then it would make sense that they released a trilogy, right? Or if it's a 2020 game, release a trilogy this year, but announced in December of 2018. It's not too far-fetched of an idea that they would have that ready. Luckily, they didn't announce it. And the thing with these reports is that it's not saying that it was planned for December, November came around, and they canceled it, right? It's that it was planned to be announced in December. They could have thought in January of 2018 not to do it, or February, right? They could have changed their mind a lot earlier in the year. They didn't necessarily make a last-minute decision. Yeah, that's a weird thing, though, now, too, because if they're restarting development, we assume at the early end it's, 3 years, right, for Metroid Prime 4? At the earliest?
Yeah.
So it's like, so are they going to wait 2 more years to announce something that possibly is already done? It's a very weird situation.
Yeah.
Weird.
What do you, let me ask you this. What do you guys think happened? Like, what happened where they were like, this is not good at all?
Well, like you said, Jared, the certain studio situations around the world were going swimmingly, and then others were just garbage fires. So
I think Nintendo's a very proud company, and I think they gave Bandai Namco a chance to work on a game, and I think they quickly realized it backfired for them. Nintendo seems like a company who really loves to control what they're making, and I don't think they necessarily had all the control they wanted with Bandai Namco. And I think they just looked at the product and they're like, this isn't our level of quality. So as much as I love Bandai Namco, right, they published the Dark Souls games. They also published like the spin-off Dragon Ball games and like the Naruto games, and like those are usually like 6s and 7s. Like Bandai Namco doesn't necessarily have a stable of like Game of the Year games, and I think Nintendo wants Metroid Prime 4 to be a Game of the Year candidate, you know? I think it just wasn't shaping up to be a top-of-the-line game. They've set the bar recently, you know, with Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey. Those are arguably both the best in their long-running franchise. For a franchise like Metroid, which is beloved but not as popular as Mario or Zelda, I think they want to make sure it's a fantastic game. So anything short of that, they're like, no. And for Nintendo to cancel a game and like scrap it is crazy. It must have been bad, or at least
it's a really big deal.
Yeah. Who knows? It's going to be interesting. People are wondering if it's going to still be called Metroid Prime 4. It will. Especially if Retro's working on it. I almost guarantee it'll be called Metroid Prime 4. Probably have a subtitle. It's just depressing, man, that we were this close to getting a Metroid Prime trilogy remaster for Switch, and it just didn't happen. I would rather not know that than know about it, you know? Just
exactly.
You get one of those Men in Black memory erasers and zap my brain.
Neuralizer.
Exactly. That's it for this week's show. Thank you, Andrew, for joining us. Before we dip out, we're going to talk about really quick what we're going to be playing. For me, more Kingdom Hearts 3. I don't think there's any huge release this week that I'm thinking of. Trials is coming out soon, so I'm super stoked for that. I'm a big Trials guy. It's pretty much it for me. More Kingdom Hearts 3, more convoluted story and weird dialogue. Interested to see where things go. The over-under in terms of beating it, Jordan, I've read is like 35 hours.
Wow, that's shorter. That's actually closer to KH1 than 2. I would have thought it was going to be longer than that.
Yeah, I mean, but that's like the average. So I think I'm playing it at a very leisurely pace of like finding chests, exploring areas. I'm not in a rush, so mine will probably be much longer than that, I assume. But yeah, enjoying my time with it.
Yeah.
You guys?
I am as well. I'm obviously going to be playing it a lot, as I have been already. I'm enjoying the journey, man. Excuse me. Like I said, the difficulty or lack thereof is pretty disappointing, especially since that seems to be like one of the only parts of the series that wasn't carried over as far as them being, substantial challenges, I guess you could say. And so that part I'm very much lamenting, but everything else I'm enjoying the hell out of. And the music is fantastic. The visuals are great. Seeing some of these environments that I've seen, we're getting a big jump from PS2 to PS4 or from PSP or the 3DS games or whatever. There hasn't ever been a Kingdom Hearts game made from the ground up on an HD console, and that really shows when I've been like going through.
So crazy to think about that.
Yeah, it's weird to think about. They've remastered but never built it from the ground up, and going back, the remasters are 4K 60 and they look amazing, but it's still a gigantic jump when you're looking at this stuff in these cutscenes. These environments are just so crispy, crispy booty, you might even say. And so I'm enjoying that part of it, and I'm loving the being able to bask in the higher than 1080 resolution. But at the same time, maybe I'll enjoy it if I do a second playthrough, later in life or whatever, on Proud Mode, the hard mode that they have, because then I'll actually maybe die. Like, I'm wondering, am I going to finish this game without ever dying? I'm starting to wonder.
I haven't died yet either.
Without even trying.
I haven't died yet either, and I thought I died. I was in Olympus, and I fell, and I found the forge. I was like, oh, man, I fell off and died, and then I landed in the forge, and I was like, oh, cool, I get a new item. So, yeah.
I don't think I found that, but that's cool.
Dom, what are you going to be playing?
Kingdom Hearts.
Shocker, didn't see that one coming.
Man.
Andrew.
I should also say I'm finishing up, I'm at the tail end of Bayonetta, and so I'll probably be playing Bayonetta 2 once that finishes up, but Kingdom Hearts is taking up most of my time.
Andrew, I'm assuming more RE2 for Raccoon City Radio?
Yeah. Like I said, Alex and I are playing it kind of like a book club sort of thing, so we're just taking it section by section. And then maybe I'll even, just because he's been playing a lot of Kingdom Hearts 3 already. He's already beaten the game. He told me that he played for 23 hours straight when he got the game. Oh my God. Hats off to him.
Yeah, bravo.
He's a marathoner. That guy does like 4-hour podcasts. Yeah. I don't know how he does it. The stamina.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Oh, thank you to the 23 hours gaming session.
Insane.
But even one of my favorite series.
Yeah. So, yeah, we had to push back this week's episode of Raccoon City Radio like twice because he was like, I'm really sorry, but like I'm still playing this, and like I haven't gotten through like Resident Evil 2, like the police station. And I was like, it's fine, whatever. We just push it back a couple days. But yeah, more of Resident Evil 2. I'm probably gonna start Resident Evil 7.
Dope.
And just push myself. It's weird to think about because I feel like the police station is, because it's so open, I'm like, oh, it's not as scary. But like being in a house stuck with like a crazy ass family, yeah, that sounds pretty terrifying.
Real quick, sorry. Dom, would you say the first half of that game is scarier than the second half? Because I would say the first half of that game is scarier, than the second half.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
Good to know. If I just
I
gotta
agree.
power through it, then I think I can do it. But and then Wargroove comes out tomorrow.
Great reviews.
Yeah, which is kind of like if you guys, I'm assuming you guys know about it, but for listeners, kind of like a successor to Advance Wars, kind of with like a cartoony Fire Emblem vibe to it. So yeah, I'm gonna pick that up tomorrow and play that over the weekend too. So
one of them Switch selects. It's gonna be a great game to pick up on Switch.
Yeah.
Real quick, so our listeners can know you a little bit better, Andrew. What are your top 3 favorite video games? Real quick, your top favorite video game.
Oh man, top 3 favorite video games. Halo 2.
Ooh, good one.
That game kind of kicked off like my whole obsession with video games back in the day. I still have the limited collector's edition case.
Hell yeah.
And it's all like eroded now. So it looks like battle damage, which is really cool. I'm trying to think of like another like big game. I don't know. Metroid 2, actually like the original Metroid 2.
Ooh.
It's like the first game I ever played.
Is that Super Metroid or is that?
No, Metroid 2, which is on Game Boy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right. Okay, yep.
Yeah, so like the OG one.
Yeah.
That's the one that they just remade.
Yeah, I love that game
game
too. I love that 3DS version. A lot of people were like pissed off that it wasn't on Switch, and I was like, whatever. I still need to give my 3DS some love every once in a while. And then I'd say probably A Link to the Past.
Ooh, nice.
Because that's just like, to me, that's like the granddaddy of like Metroidvania in a way, which technically it is Symphony of the Night, but I've never beat Symphony of the Night, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I've been meaning to beat that game too, just because I bought that Castlevania like remastered collection or whatever that came out like this past summer for like $20. So yeah, I should probably play that game. That's a good reminder for me too. But yeah, just like those classic games and just the ones that really kicked it off for me. And I feel like Resident Evil 2 might make its way into like one of my favorite games ever, which I know is kind of a bold statement. But I just really love the game so far a lot. I don't attach myself to games very often where I'm like, this is a really fucking good game, but Resident Evil 2 is definitely one of them for me.
So that way you know us a little bit more, because I hope to have you on the podcast again this year, multiple times hopefully. For me, my favorite game is Mass Effect 2. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I can go on and on about that game. Dom.
Yeah. Ocarina of Time.
There we go.
Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
He's gone.
Oh, he's not there. My bad.
I want to say it's like Infamous or something.
No, I think his favorite game would be The Witcher 3, right?
No, maybe.
He's back.
Hey, I'm back. Witcher 3's up there. BioShock's up there. I would say, Spider-Man and Kingdom Hearts 3 are now up there. Bloodborne's up there.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Ooh,
lots of
Bloodborne's a good call.
selections.
Yeah. Thank you guys for listening. If you can, please follow us on Twitter. We're at CTRLINT. That's Controlled Interest Abbreviated. You can follow me at Jared_. You can follow Dom at Dom's Oreos. You can follow Jordan at Melomotus. Go on iTunes. Follow us there. Leave us a review. It definitely helps. Subscribe to us on YouTube if you watch the video version of this podcast. Andrew, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Papa Drew Bear. If you're playing Resident Evil 2 right now, you can find me and my co-host Alex O'Neill on iTunes at Raccoon City Radio. Like I mentioned earlier, we're playing the game kind of like a book club sort of thing, but if you've already beaten the game, you know what's going to happen, so you can kind of just go back and listen to the episodes that are currently on right now. It's like 6 episodes that we're going to be doing, so we've only done 2 right now, so we still have like 4 weeks to go. But yeah, you can find that on iTunes, Pocket Cast, Stitcher, Google Play, and I think Spotify too. So,
do we think we're getting Resident Evil 8 this year? An announcement?
Possibly.
No.
Did you guys
I
hear
don't
the
think
rumor?
we're getting it year.
Did you hear the announcement that the rumor that it's going back to third person?
I did not.
Yeah, there's some rumblings that.
I love that third person.
Andrew, you too, right? That'd be better for you, not the first person spookiness.
I would be able to play Resident Evil 8 if it's third person. We kind of speculate. Yeah, we speculated about that, where like maybe they remake 3 and they just do the same thing that they did with 2, but then they continued on with 8, and then it was still first person, so they kind of have like 2 studios working on it. But I don't know, maybe.
Interesting.
Yeah,
man, props to people who played Resident Evil 7 in VR. Not even from a scary perspective for me. It's like a nauseous, like, it's props to whoever was able to do that. Yeah, that's our show for this week. Tune in next week, episode 132. We might be talking about the Nintendo Direct that might happen. Yeah, catch you guys next time. Bye.